What's up guys, it's Matt here. Welcome to another Tech Talk. I'm bringing it to you. This is the AK-47 Gearbox disassembly. I'm going to show you how to pull it apart, what it's all about, what's different, and then how to put it back together. So let's get into it. Okay guys, here is the gearbox. So basically, let's get started pulling it apart. The first step is to pull this little black piece off here. So this is what that big heavy recoil bit's for. This is what's holding the spring on that pushes it back into place. So all you got to do to take this off is push that forward, and then get it up and out like that. And take the spring out, sit them aside, don't lose them, and then you can take this big heavy weight off. Got this rod and this little pad really that softens the flow in the front of the receiver, gearbox, sorry. To get that out, you just got to take the screw out. So just like that, and this will just slide out like that. There you go. The next step is you can take this little plate off that's holding the two sides of the housing together. This is also very similar to the Well G36 gearbox. This has got one on top of that as well. It is somewhat based off a V3 style gearbox, but it is a little bit different to the G36 box. But the way the trigger sits in is also the same as before. To get this little plate off, you've just got to sort of pop it up and over for this little knob here to get out, just like that. Next we can take the rest of these screws out. Usually what you would do is you take the spring retainer out and the spring out, but you can't do that on this one because it's actually enclosed with the housing. So when we do take all the screws out and pry it apart, you are going to have to be a little bit careful that it doesn't just go shooting out. Once you've got all the screws out guys, don't forget to take these wires off. Just for future reference for you, this single wire here will be sitting on that part of the switch. So the one that comes across like that single wire sits on there, and then the one that has the two wires is on the front just there. So, now that's off and out of your way. Now we can split the housing, but again be mindful of this spring, that it's not going to go shooting out when you do pry that back. All my bits and pieces are falling out, that's alright. So the first thing I'm obviously going to do is get this spring out, so just got to have a little bit of compression out of that little spot, and out she goes. It's only a little 1.1 spring anyway, so that's not too bad. So as you can see, this is the one with the metal gears. The gears themselves are obviously a bit different than what you guys are probably used to. They're definitely different to the Gen 8 and V2 gears. They have a lot smaller spur gear compared to the sector gear. So they're pretty much sort of designed for this gearbox or this housing. They also don't really need any shimming because they've made them pretty much to size for this housing, which is cool because you don't really have to worry if you do pull it apart. You don't have to worry about the shims going flying. I'll show you guys how to put the trigger back in mainly on this because all the others, the other bits are pretty much the same as the other gearboxes. So I'll show you how to put the trigger back in. That is probably one of the trickiest triggers I've ever had to work with. It is pretty much the same principle as the V3 or the Well G36 gearbox. Okay, so this is the trigger assembly. The biggest thing with this one is that this little runner here that pushes forward and touches those two little plates. You have to make sure that this is sitting in the right spot, which is sort of horizontal with this piece here. Otherwise that the trigger's not going to sort of engage it properly and it's just going to slip off. So make sure that that's sitting in the right spot so it does operate properly. So you'll have this little spring. This is your trigger spring. You've got one long bit and one short bit. That short little bit's going to go in a little hole just inside that housing there. So you're just going to drop it in like that and leave the spring like that. You're going to get your trigger, put this little back piece on there like that. That's the bit that actually engages that trolley. So what you're going to do is you're going to get the back side of this to sit just in front of that part of the spring. Pretty much like that. So get that spring behind that blue part of the trigger. Make sure that this black piece is sort of back like that so you can get it in behind the trolley. And then get it to sit in its little hole. Pretty much like that. There you go. Done. Alright guys, now that the trigger's back in, these gears pretty much just sit straight back into place, and this plunger and cylinder head just pop in pretty much the same as the way the other gearboxes do. Just be mindful that this piston does sit in the rails correctly, otherwise then the gears aren't going to engage it. But the biggest thing with this that's different is you do have a little nut just inside the back of that spring retainer, and you do have to put it back in before you put the housing back together. So you just drop that spring in, hold the cylinder down as well while you compress it, otherwise it's all going to pop out, and then just push that into its little home. So you might need to just hold a bit of pressure on that cylinder as you put the housing back together so it doesn't all jump back into a million pieces. You can hold it through here just like that, and then it's just a matter of lining up the back, lining up all the gears and making sure that trigger falls into place properly, and then the front piece goes in properly, as long as you don't have your wires in there like that. And then you get it into the cylinder head, fall into where it should be, just like that, and then we can put the screws back in. Don't forget to put these terminals back in, guys. You've got your black wired terminal here which goes to the front. You've got to have the housing apart just a little bit for it to just sort of slip into one half of the housing. And then the other one will just, the other side will just drop in and hold it in place like that. Alright, now that you've got all the screws back in, we can go ahead and put the top part of this box back together. So that's including this little rail here, just slide it on and into place so it just clicks in. Then we can get our little pad that just sits there, like that. Get our rod. Our rod actually has a little notch in it. So that's actually the bit that goes inside the housing, and the screw will go in between that little notch holding it in place. So you just drop it in like that, push it forward, and then put your screw in. That can't go anywhere. Next step, you just grab the big weight. You're going to slide the rod through that little hole, but the biggest thing is that little catch just there goes just behind the piston inside the gearbox. So when the piston actually gets pulled back, that's when this weight goes back as well, and then when it all releases, then this weight goes forward. So that's how you get that recoil sort of feeling from it. Just in there like that. Then we get our spring and our little follower.
And now expresses it musically himself.
Push it into the little hole like that. You can sort of put it on the side and then lift it up and drop it in. It has a little rail it has to slot into, so just be mindful of that. And then you'll know once it's in, it pretty much does that, and you can operate it like that so it returns home. The other thing I've got to mention, guys, is please don't change the spring to a bigger spring, because I have seen that this cylinder head and the piston head sort of break into a few pieces. I will be talking to the guys overseas about getting some better quality bits just to sort of replace that instead. But yeah, just stick to the spring that it's got. Use the blaster as it is been designed for, and you'll probably have the most fun about it because it will be working. There you have it, guys. That's the RX AK47 gearbox. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys at the next Tech Talk. Don't forget to leave a comment below. Tell me what you guys think. Hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel. And I'll see you guys at the next Tech Talk.